Hey everyone, welcome to another October edition of the Dan and Joe Sports Show. As always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.
All right, Joe, we're in the midst of another Braves playoff run. Got to go to my first game in Truist Park this year, and it's excellent. And getting to watch the amazing atmosphere that they have for a playoff game makes me think that maybe next season the Dan and Joe Sports Show need to go to a playoff game with the Braves up there because it is excellent.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. I've actually, ironically, even though I'm a big Braves fan, I've never seen them play in Atlanta. The only time I've seen them play is at Wrigley Field in Chicago. So that would be fun.
We need to make the trip, man. I'm telling you, like it is an excellent experience to go to a Braves game, and we'll make it happen.
That'd be fun.
Well, right now they're in the midst of the 5 game NLDS against a really red hot team in the Phillies. I'm a little worried, Joe. The Phillies kind of seem like the way the Braves were last year. They didn't win their division, but they got hot at the very end of the season, barely made the playoffs, and are just right now they're beating teams they're not supposed to, and just kind of have a streak going with some really great pitching. And last night they beat the Braves in game one, 7-6. Really controlled the game for basically the entire game until the ninth inning when the Braves put up a bunch of trash runs and made it interesting to where they were down by one at the end. And we come into tonight, and it's been a really excellent game. I mean, up until the sixth inning, it was 0-0. And I just kind of want to talk about this amazing, turn of events you had for the Braves because Zach Wheeler, who's the, Phillies do everything pitcher, he's got a huge deal, was pitching just a whale of a game. And right before he got up there in the sixth inning, Dansby Swanson made one of the best catches I think I've ever seen a shortstop make. I tweeted about it because I thought it was so excellent. You don't see shortstops very often have a no look jump over, towards the wall and catch it, especially deep in the outfield. I mean, he was probably almost halfway in the outfield when he made that catch.
Yeah, and that was Ozzie Smith esque what he did, and that was huge. Especially at that point, I think a no score game.
Yeah, and that stopped any chance that the Phillies had of scoring a run. And we get to the next inning, Zach Wheeler's been dominating the Braves. I think they had one base runner. Acuna had gotten a single earlier in the game, and that was it. He gets two people back to back outs, 2 outs. And then the scary thing happened for the Braves and put a hush on the stadium, and everybody watching it just grimaced because Wheeler just drilled Acuna. And when I first saw it, I thought that he'd hit him in the chest and maybe broken a rib because you could see the way that Acuna reacted to it, and he was in horrific pain. And when they showed the replay, it turns out that it was actually his right elbow that got hit, but he wasn't wearing a pad. And I mean, he dropped to the ground in pain. You saw the bat flop in the air because just of how hard he was hit. It was a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. And, I think every Braves fan was thinking to themselves, are we about to lose Acuna for another postseason? I know I was definitely thinking that. And, after about 5 minutes of him getting stretched out by his trainer, instead of going into the dugout, he actually went to run the bases. And even more surprising, after the run that we're going to get into a little bit, he actually went in the outfield and kept playing. Now, I haven't seen, before we started the show, whether he caught anything and could throw the ball. I have no idea. That's going to be a whole nother story. But regardless, really tough move by Acuna there. And Dansby Swanson gets walked, so we have 2 outs. Matt Olson gets down to an 0-2 count, and he hits this laser shot to the first baseman that kicks off in a really clutch pitch. Probably the only mistake, Wheeler really made outside of, hitting Acuna. And then boom, the Braves get on the board. Austin Riley hits almost like a little softball chop hit that gets him to the first base, scores another run. And I think d'Arnaud hits in the last guy, and the Braves get up 3-0. And it looks like they're in a very good position. They've given up no runs. Their bullpen's in, and I think there's a very good chance we're looking at a 1-1 series right now.
Yes, and it was obviously a must win for the Braves to tie it up heading back to Philadelphia on Friday. And I think that when you look at the rally, as you illustrated, what stands out to me, and I heard John Smoltz say this on the broadcast, is it emulated kind of that old school approach in the playoffs of manufacturing runs, which is largely a lost art now. You mainly see the feast or famine hitting a home run to get runs across the board. And so for the Braves to pull this off, all with 2 outs and get 3 runs in a pitcher's duel of a game, that was huge. And I think that gives them a boost of momentum heading into Philadelphia.
Absolutely, Joe, because you look at this as a 5-game series. Had they dropped this game, it would have been a very long road to hoe for them to come back and win that series. I mean, I think it would have been a 95% chance the Phillies probably would have won this. Interestingly, I saw a stat earlier today that in the 13 division series where the Braves have lost the first game, they're only 2-11. So they were already, history says, going to have a rough time winning this series. But I really think the way they're going to end up winning this game is going to add a lot of momentum, because that was a very emotional, brief period of time for the Braves that could have gone the other way. And I thought just the reaction, the strength of this team, and of Acuna to go back out there is really going to inspire them moving forward.
Yeah, I think so, Dan. And I think it's a moment that you look back on if they have success the rest of this series, or even, if they can get to the next round of the playoffs. This is a moment that you kind of like freeze in time, rewind, and reflect on it later on. And coming into this series, as you alluded to earlier, I was nervous about playing the Phillies.
I was too.
Of course, I would have been nervous about playing the Cardinals too. Like either way, either one of those teams I was going to be nervous about. And with the Phillies specifically, it's having a team that's a divisional rival that's really familiar with you. You've played them 19 times during the regular season. I think the Braves beat them 11 times. The Phillies won 8 times. So there's that, familiarity factor. And then second, you have the pitching for the Phillies, and you have the offensive weapons like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and company. And you really see a lot of comparisons between this Phillies team in 2022, and you said the Braves last year, also the 2019 Nationals, who won the whole thing with Strasburg and Scherzer. That kind of reminds me a lot of Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler as a good 1-2 punch as starting pitchers. And so a lot of things that concern me about this team. It's going to be a tough out, as we've already seen through 2 games. But I do think one advantage, assuming the Braves win tonight, is that I think the Braves have more depth on their roster, especially when it comes to their rotation. When you look at pitchers like Charlie Morton and Spencer Strider, that's a lot more depth from a pitching rotation. You don't lose as much if you're the Braves when you don't have Max Fried or Kyle Wright out there.
That's right. And, Charlie Morton's had such a good playoff career. While he hadn't had the best season, you look at what he's done in the playoffs over his time in the majors, and he's got a very good record. So that's a good veteran presence to have out there.
Yeah, it's a luxury to have him as your 4th starter this year.
That's right. So, assuming they close it out, get this game, I think this is a huge win, and this may very well be a series that goes to Game 5. But if this goes to Game 5 in Atlanta, I really like their chances based on the home crowd that we're seeing. I mean, it's a fantastic atmosphere in Atlanta right now.
It really is. Absolutely.
All right. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's just really, really cool game to get to check out right there. And just one of the more dramatic Game 2s I've ever seen in terms of that whole series of events that took place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Joe, speaking of cool games, the Saints had an epic one last week. Of course, they haven't gotten out to the best start of their season. It's been a little bit of what we expected, which is the defense is excellent, but the offense is a little bit of a liability. What we didn't expect was the offensive line to be so bad and for Jameis Winston to seemingly take some steps back. And last week, I thought we saw by far the best game the Saints have played all season. The Seahawks are not a great football team, but they're a pretty good team. They're one that the Saints have historically not done very well against. But we saw Andy Dalton continue to be very consistent, really making it, I think, in my mind, hard for Jameis Winston to be returned as the starting quarterback. And more importantly, like Taysom Hill doing this yeoman's effort where he did everything. I think he threw a touchdown pass. He ran for a couple touchdowns. I think he ran for over 100 yards. I think he caused a fumble and recovered it in special teams. I mean, it was the most amazing, like Jim Thorpe-esque performance I can ever remember somebody doing.
Well, what it reminds me of is in the sport of basketball, the equivalent is you want the offense to run through your best player or the best player on the court. And so oftentimes people are like, that has to be the point guard or that has to be the shooting guard. but you really see that it can run through anybody. And I think that even though Taysom Hill is not the starting quarterback this year, when he's on the field, the offense can run through him. And it kind of has to out of necessity because of the injuries you've had to the wide receivers, but also he's such a great spark plug with his talent.
Absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned the injuries to the wide receivers. They just keep mounting. I mean, Michael Thomas got injured, Jarvis Landry's injured, and then that last game, I mean, Olave was able to make an incredible touchdown pass, but he got injured too. And here's hoping that we get all these guys back soon. But you're right. I mean, if it's going to continue this way without Olave, Jarvis, or Michael Thomas, then Taysom Hill becomes all that much more important.
Yes, yes. And you have Kamara back, which makes the offense more dynamic, helps the running game significantly. And so, I mean, this is still a team, if they can reverse course and get some momentum, I still think they have an outside chance, to be a threat, to make some noise as far as a fringe playoff contender. But, obviously they got a big game this weekend against Cincinnati.
That's right, Joe. It's going to be the return for the return for Joe Burrow to Louisiana. I know a lot of us Saints fans wish we would have, Ricky Williams did to get him in the draft a couple years ago, just because of what we knew he would be as an NFL quarterback. And of course, he's proven everybody right about what he would be. But that'll be an interesting experience, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of LSU fans that come to the game that maybe aren't even Saints fans just to root on Joe Burrow.
Yes, it'd be a lot. Like I know in the past, I can remember when the Bengals came, they've always brought some fans, but really locally, you're going to have a lot of Louisiana fans and a lot of LSU fans and Saints fans kind of torn this weekend too.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot of people that are wearing that LSU jersey that's Burrow spelled Cajun style, Burreaux.
Exactly.
So that'll be a cool thing, and kind of a game between two teams that definitely had higher expectations, but have both had some kind of disappointing seasons this year because the Bengals are one of the more disappointing teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah, the problem for them is the AFC is just so loaded. You could literally go 9 or 10 deep in that conference.
That's right. And Joe, speaking of how loaded it is right now, the Bills and the Chiefs are taking on each other in what is quietly becoming a huge rivalry in the NFL, and one amongst the two of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the league that seem to always play each other in the playoffs, and Pat Mahomes and of course the Bills quarterback too, and Allen, and it's going to be a really good matchup there, and the Chiefs are kind of doing what I feel like they've done the last couple of years. They just keep winning these games in crazy ways. Like last week, Travis Kelce scored 4 touchdowns, and the Raiders just inexplicably went for 2-point conversion for no reason that cost them the game. And that's what we're looking at right now. And of course, the Bills with Josh Allen, are yet again looking like a team that maybe this is the year they finally break through.
They really do. And to that point, I read today this is the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career that his team has been a home underdog heading into a game. And so that shows you, the regard that everybody has right now when it comes to the Bills. And yeah, to your point about the rivalry, I mean, this is kind of the new potential up-and-coming rivalry in the NFL for a quarterback versus quarterback scenario, especially with these guys being age 26 and 27 respectively. We could see this for a long time.
Yeah, we can see this for maybe another 10 years or more. So that's definitely something to look forward to. And this should be a great game. I mean, I can only imagine how much revenge is on the mind of the Bills after what happened in that game last year.
Yeah, they're returning to Arrowhead Stadium as well.
Yeah, returning to the scene of the crime, if you will, where you and I definitely had the biggest questions ever about the NFL overtime system, because that was still just such a shame that we didn't get to see Josh Allen and his team try to respond to that late touchdown by the Chiefs in overtime.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
And Joe, we got the Eagles and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are just playing incredible with their backup quarterback right now. And I was talking about a quarterback controversy in New Orleans. Right now, if you're Jerry Jones, why don't you cut Dak loose and, get rid of all the money that you're having to pay, because this backup is playing incredible. and you keep paying Dak Prescott all this money, and he keeps getting hurt all the time.
Yeah, you kind of want to consider that. You probably could get somebody to trade with you, like
Yeah.
to get some compensation back too. And Rush seems to be just like the story of the NFL right now. And I think that you have to consider that if you're the Cowboys, the team really likes playing around him. And then on the flip side, Jalen Hurts has the Eagles, as the best team in the NFC this year, a true Super Bowl contender. They added A.J. Brown, and that offense is high flying.
Yeah, I mean, what a great set of receivers that Jalen Hurts has to throw to with his former teammate Devontae Smith at Alabama and AJ Brown at Ole Miss. Really great SEC tandem right there. And the Eagles have a great looking offense and are really just kind of coming out of nowhere to be a real, looks like a team that can maybe make a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, so this would be a big divisional game for both teams.
That's right. So, like I said, this will be interesting. I mean, if Cooper Rush can go out there and beat the Eagles, I mean, I think it really leads a lot of validity to what we're saying right now, because in my mind, it's almost like Dak Prescott is dead money right now.
Yeah. And with Rush, it's kind of like each win just feels magical, kind of Hollywood-esque to a large degree, and you just kind of feel like you don't want to wake up at this point.
That's right. So we'll see what happens in that, and maybe we'll have a little bit more Cooper Rush talk next week if they can get that win. When we come back, we're going to talk a lot of Tennessee football and just what they did down in Death Valley, talking about Louisiana and a lot of other great games that we had last week on the college football side that we'll be talking about. If you want to listen to our old episodes, you can go on Spotify and catch all of our episodes over the last couple of years. Of course, you can also subscribe to our YouTube account and see all of our videos that we've had lately that we posted on there. You can also follow us on Twitter at DJ Sports Show, and you can like us on Facebook and become members of our fan page. And as always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.